This Excel demonstration is on constructing a grouped frequency distribution. So we're going to use our Excel workbook, Excel demonstration, store A and B data. So I'm going to create a grouped frequency distribution for the store A prices. So I'm going to highlight store A and highlight all 30 pieces of our data, and I'm going to copy this data to a new worksheet just so that we get it separated. So I'll say copy, and then I'm going to click on the plus sign to get a new worksheet, and I'm going to paste it right here. And then I'm going to label this new worksheet frequency distribution. Next to the data, I'm going to put some of the information that we're going to need for this frequency distribution. So we need the number of classes, and convention tells us that the number of classes needs to be between 5 and 20. Then below that, I'm going to put the range because I'm going to need to know the range of the data. And then below that, I'm going to put the class width. So that's my starting point. I'm going to figure those out. And then I'm going to come over here. Let's just put it like in G1. I'm going to type in lower class limit. And right next to it, I'm going to put upper class limit. Then I'm going to give those a little bit of room. I'll spread them out a little bit so that we can capture that entire label. So we'll go like this. Then what happens is the first thing that I want to do is decide on the number of classes. So we said 5 to 20, so let's just go with 5. So I'm going to do 5 classes for this frequency distribution. And then the range, so the range, remember, we can do 2 different ways. We can either use the maximum function and find the maximum of our data set, and then do the minimum function and subtract those two. So we can do max and our array of numbers minus min and our array of numbers. Or we can come over here and we can sort our data, and then we can just find the minimum and the maximum. So I'm going to sort. So I'll sort the data and I'll go smallest to largest. And then for my range, I'll come here and I'll say equal, and I'll go all the way down to the max, and then I'll subtract the minimum, the $1.99. Then the class width is the range divided by the number of classes. So the class width now is going to be this number, the range, divided by the number of classes. So $1.80 as far as that's concerned. So let's just look at it right now with the $1.80, and let's calculate the lower class limits and the upper class limits, and let's see what happens. So we always start with our lowest. So we'll use the $1.99. And we're going to add the class width to these. So in this location, in the second one, equal, I'm going to take the $1.99 and I'm going to add the $1.80. And then I'm going to copy it down. And I'm actually going to copy it down 6 times, even though I've got 5 classes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then for the upper class limit, I will take this value and subtract 1 penny, 0.01. And then we'll copy this down to here. So there's the 5 classes. So what I wanted to show you was when we go this direction, notice how the upper class limit is $10.98. Well, my maximum value was $10.99, so it doesn't have anywhere to go. So that's why it's an important concept to round that class width up to the next number that makes sense in the data. So if you were working with whole numbers, we'd round to the next whole number. In this one's case, in our calculation, our data goes to 2 decimal places, and so we're going to want to round up so that we make sure that all of our data is captured. So we're going to round up to $1.81. So rounding up, it's not a normal rounding. It's rounding up, and that's to ensure that we capture all of the data. So that's what our class width is going to be now, is $1.81. And so I'm going to come in here. I'm going to type in the $1.81. And then we'll copy that down. So now, using the $1.81, what happens is now it goes all the way up to $11.03. Now that captures that maximum value that we have of $10.99. I'm going to leave this 1104 in here just until we go over here and let's do our boundaries next. So our boundaries, so we're going to do a lower class boundary. And we're going to do an upper class boundary. Going to make those wider, oops, not bigger, but I'm going to make those wider so that we can see everything. So I'm going to come over here, try to get all of that word in. And then I'll come over here and make this one a little bit bigger to capture boundary also. Now remember, when you're doing your boundaries, you want your you want your classes to touch. And so we want them to touch, and so we're going to add 0.005 to the upper class limit, or subtract 0.005 from the lower class limit, and then that will make those 2 bars touch. So the lower class boundary, as far as this is concerned, is I want to take this value and I want to go back, so I want to subtract 0.005. Now when I take that and I copy it down, and let me copy it all the way down to 6, even though we're only using 5, and that'll be my lower class boundary. So now what happens is these values, starting with the second one, starting with my second lower class boundary, they're going to be the upper class boundaries because we want the classes to touch. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to copy them. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to right click, pick copy, come over here, click to paste, but I want to paste the values. I don't want to bring the formulas in with it. So now notice what happens. The upper class boundary here is the same as the lower class boundary here. So these numbers are identical. And I know they don't make sense in the context of the problem because we're working with money, but we're doing this intentionally just to make the boundaries touch. Now I can go back and now I can get rid of these values that I was just using for ease of calculation. Oops, that goofed that up because I had a formula in there. So in this one spot, I need to put in that $11.03. So 11, I typed it over the formula so that when I get rid of this, so when I delete this one, and when I delete this one, I didn't end up with any errors in my calculation. Now we're ready to tally the data in. So that's my next thing that happens. And so over here, I want to put frequency in here. I'm going to use Excel and let it do the tallying for me. So we're going to use our data analysis tool pack again in this demonstration to do the tallying. So the next thing that happens is go to data analysis, and we're going to pick histogram. And the histogram tool will do the tallying for us. So I clicked OK. So the input range is our range of data. So the input range is the range of data. I'm going to come over here to our prices. I'm going to highlight all 30 pieces of data. And then the bin range below it, something happened with our data. So, I think the column was not wide enough to get our $10.99. That's strange. Something happened with our formatting there. Let me come up here and let's make this one cancel. Let me X out. Something happened with our data over here that the $10.99 didn't fit in anymore. Okay, sorry for the confusion. Go back to data analysis, click on the histogram. Okay. Now our input range. So let's go over here. Let's pick our low, pick up all 30, having malfunction issues, all 30 pieces of data, all the way down to the $10.99. Then the second thing that happens is it wants a bin range. So the bin range is our upper class boundaries. So our bin range is the upper class boundaries, which are here. All the way down to the 6th row. Let me move it out of the way, make sure it looks okay. Oops. Highlight it. And then the output range. So in the past, we've put some things into a new worksheet. Let's just put it here. And let's say that I want the bin range maybe to go like here where I click my cursor. Sorry. Try this again. So coming up here, this is the third time, right? Third time's a charm, coming all the way down. I'd restart this other than the fact that I've been talking for 13 minutes. And then the bin range is the upper class boundary coming here. And we said we'd move it out of the way to check. Then the output range was the thing I wanted to talk about, is instead of sending it to a new worksheet ply, let's just put it maybe here. And I'll click on OK. So here's my output. And so these are my new frequencies. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight this value and I'm going to copy them. And I'm going to paste them over here into my table. Then what I'm going to do just to make it look nice is I kind of like the fact that it has those nice bars around the formatting on it. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to format it. And I'm just going to copy that very same all the way across to these four. So now everything looks consistent. It's got that nice solid bar on the top and it's got the line underneath it. So I